Opie, it's time for, since we've already heard Jim's joke, this is going to be a short speech. Come on up, Opie.
Obviously, we have a great speaker today. At least he will keep our attention, right? We're so glad to have Jim Owens as our speaker today. He's a 30-year veteran of the financial service industry. He has served in a variety of leadership roles in both community banks and large regional and international institutions. He's the author of several training workshops on sales and negotiation skills, team building, and leadership. He's also an authorized partner for Everything Disc. Jim gives back to his community through involvement in a variety of community organizations, including serving on the board of the Huntsville-Madison County Chamber of Commerce and is chairman of Leadership Huntsville's Master Program. He really doesn't need an introduction, but we're so glad to have him. Jim?
Today got to get thought about who could speak. What they wanted to do was they wanted to get somebody with the inspirational caliber of Joel Osteen, somebody that had the sophisticated good looks of George Clooney, someone with the oratorical skill of Barack Obama, and if that wasn't available, get somebody free. And so here I am, and I was led here under false pretenses. I do have to say that. I was told the jars of cash would be mine to keep, and I'm not really sure what's going on with that. But Betty, I appreciate you arranging with Opie the opportunity for me to come here and speak. So if you don't like me, tell Betty. If you do like me, tell me. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been doing this for maybe 15 or 20 years, and it's an interesting way to get started in doing something. One time I had a friend call me. Her name is Ann Penny, Dr. Ann Penny. She called me and she said, I'm not used to having a table behind me, so if they're making funny faces, would you please let me know? Dr. Penny called me and she said, I'd like to have you come speak to my leadership group. And I said, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. What do you want me to talk about? She said, I don't care. Whatever you want to talk about. And I said, well, as long as it's not about money and not about banking, I'd be happy to do that. So we settled on something called coaching as a model for leadership, which I still do in various forms over the years in different places. But in the couple of weeks preceding the event, I would talk to Dr. Penny repeatedly. I'd talk to her once or twice on the phone, and I would tell my secretary I'm going out to see Dr. Penny, and we're going to meet. And so one day, my secretary, Beth, came in, and she said, Mr. Owens, can I talk to you? Would it be okay if I sat down and talk to you a second? I said, sure. What's going on, Beth? And she said, I'm worried about you. And Beth's about 4 feet tall, so she's like, I'm worried about you. And I said, well, what's wrong, Beth? She said, well, I know you've been under a lot of stress, and I know you're going to see Dr. Penny, and you're talking to her a lot, and I'm worried about you. And I said, why? She goes, well, Dr. Penny is the head of East Alabama Mental Health. And she apparently thought I was going through counseling, and I am, in fact, and the medications do appear to be working. So I'm thankful for that. My wife is thankful for that. But I am a speech in search of an audience, and I like to take the time. This is where my family is supposed to be today. I'm really not sure what happened. It's probably a family emergency or something like that. I really don't know what could have possibly kept my wife away except boredom. I've been able to do this for a lot of years, and typically what I say to people in the front row is, this is not the row I spit on. It's the baptismal row. So if something happens, I get excited and I have a lot of hand gestures, and sometimes I get ahead of myself. So I will apologize ahead of time. If you get baptized, just go in the Spirit. So what I get to do to talk to you today about is something called thriving on change. And it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart because of the industry I've worked in, and simply because I pay attention to life. And any of you got changes going on in your life today? Anything happening that's different than it was a year ago, 2 years ago? Those of you that would admit to it, yes. Okay. If you're not aware of it, that's a different session. We need to talk about something else. But I get to talk to you about thriving on change, and I have to tell you a little bit, I feel a little bit like Liz Taylor's seventh husband on their wedding night. I know what I'm supposed to do, I'm just not sure how to make it interesting. And I hope I'm not already in trouble, Opie. If I'm so, I may never be invited back, but that's about as bad as it gets here. But I enjoy doing this an awful lot because it's an opportunity for me to inspire people a little bit, to motivate them, maybe to educate them, to get them to think a little differently about the things that they go through in life, and take time to reflect on some things that I think are pretty important. And my job is to talk and yours is to listen for the next 45 minutes or so. If you get done before I do, I just appreciate it if you put your head down and be quiet. I have raised a teenage daughter, so I do know what this looks like. So, it's fun to do this because it's a chance for me to give you a gift. Hopefully it'll be a gift. And it'll be something that you'll carry with you. And if you don't remember anything else, maybe you'll remember you laughed a little bit here at the beginning of the summer in a time when you went to a meeting and perhaps didn't know what to expect. By the way, there's no truth to the rumor that there's a sign or something on YouTube with Steve Coffin in a sign in front of the White House that says Century 21. That is not the case from the March on Washington several years ago. But when I get to talk to people about change, hopefully they're not only laughing a little bit, but they're learning something, they're thinking a little differently about things. And I'm a simple guy. You already know my family's from the country. And we live so far out from town as a kid that, we hunted towards town, for those of you who know about those kinds of things. Dogs lived under the house. Kids chased the dogs under the house, the whole 9 yards. It was a great way to grow up and spend time as a child, and I have very fond memories of it. But I learned some very important things there, though. That things in life that are simple can be very profound. So what I want to tell you today is this lesson, or this thought, is brought to you by the letter A. The letter A. You remember Sesame Street? I wish I had grandkids so I could watch Sesame Street and not feel embarrassed about it anymore. Now there's those little purple things. I'm not sure what they are. And the big dinosaur that everybody wants to just kill and eat. But is Barney still around? We still have Barney? Veggie Tales. Okay. Well, so the letter A is what brings you here today and what I'm here to share with you today. You're going to hear things about thriving on change that are related to the letter A. You're going to hear about actively accepting and acknowledging change. Now, there's a difference between just accepting it or acknowledging it and actively acknowledging it. We're going to talk about that. You're going to learn about asking great questions as a part of your strategy to thrive on change. I don't remember who said this, but the unexamined life is not worth living, right? If you don't take time to think about things, you really kind of just get caught up in the next thing that comes along. You're just reacting to life like a kid who runs out in the street after a ball rather than responding, looking both ways. Left, right, left, depends on whether you're in Europe or the U.S., which way you look first. So I want to give you the chance to learn to think about some things as you ask great questions. Then I want you to be able to anticipate some things about change, because I think people who are really able to thrive on it do anticipate change well. And the last thing is they create or accelerate change. The people who really drive change, and here's what I'm going to ask you to do right now. I'm going to ask you all to stand up just a minute, because you've all eaten, and I'm prepared, and I'm going to be the best speaker you've heard all day. And I need you to be the best audience I've seen all day. So, all right, you can sit back down, take a deep breath, sit back down. So we're going to talk about things. And don't leave. You may leave, sir. I didn't mean that. Bill Poole walks up to me ahead of time. I hear you're great, but I got to go. I was introduced in Gunnersville, Alabama once by a woman who said, he's a super speaker, and I got to meet him. And she left me in front of 300 people standing there going, that's a compelling testimony when your introducer walks out. Thank you, Opie, for still being here. So let's talk first about actively accepting and acknowledging change. Accepting change is, change is happening. We got a new MLS system. We got a new this or we got a new that. Yeah, it's there. Well, that's not really embracing it. That's just kind of living with it, right? It's kind of like saying, well, I'm getting older, I'm getting fatter. I got to get older, I got to get fatter, and I got to pay taxes. Well, maybe not. Maybe we need to think a little differently. And if we acknowledge the changes going on around us, that's a more active approach. It says, hey, I got to respond to this change. I need to figure it out. I didn't respond to the changes going on in my body till I was wearing a size 42 waist pants, and my wife had bought me, actually I was wearing a 34. She said she bought me a 36 normally, but she bought me a 40 because they were so comfortable. And all that change snuck up on me. And that's what happens with change. We're so busy in things. In 2007, the financial markets began to collapse, right? I was closing on a house the day the jumbo market collapsed. My mortgage lender called me the night before and said, Mr. Owens, we're not going to have money at closing. And I said, I'm the president of the bank. That's going to be embarrassing. And I said, I don't care what you've got to do. You get a check for that $82,000. No. I said, I got to have the money at closing. I wish to high heavens I had not convinced him of that, because about 7 months later I was selling a house for about $60,000 less than I bought it for. But I'm not bitter. But what happened in 2007 was not the result of what had happened in August of that year, wasn't the result of what had happened in June or July. It had been coming for 10 years. There were things going on in the industry that no one was paying attention to. Or they always thought, oh, it's just always going to be the way it is. Let's just live the dream. Buy, flip, sell, make money. And then the market started to crash, and what most people did is they were paralyzed by fear. And they watched their 401k go from this amount to this amount to this amount. And then they went, oh, I've got to get out. Half my money's gone, because they were reacting rather than responding. They had not been actively acknowledging what was going on in the financial markets at that time. So my friends, something's happening right now that you don't really realize. There's stuff happening, Megan. I told Megan I was going to call on her. She volunteered to dance, but we're not going to ask her to do that. Actually, Scott volunteered her to dance, so Scott, you can dance. How about that? But things are going on around us today that if we're not paying attention, we don't. So Cabela's means great things for the community, right? It means great things. It means I can go buy more guns. And then I can go to Bass Pro and buy some more. My wife's just like, what do we need more guns for? I said, I don't know. You know, everybody's got to have, it's like cars and jewelry, right? Anyway, I'm not a gun nut. I'm a gun maniac. No, I'm neither one of those. But it sounds good. But those are good things. But what about BRAC or sequestration? And what's going to happen in 10 years? What's happening with the baby boomers right now? And what does that mean to people who own homes that are worth, say, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000? There are not enough people coming along to buy those houses. Y'all young people got to get busy, have babies. Old folks like me want to sell our house someday. Thought that would resonate a little better, but I guess not. Now I've covered religion, and I've hit the other topic I'm not supposed to talk about. So anyway, you got to accept it. You got to acknowledge it. You got to be actively responding to it, right? And to do that, you got to ask some really good questions. Now, I learned the lesson about asking good questions a long time ago. At the age of 20, I was very wise.